Hey guys, welcome to episode 12 of the Small Truck Campers podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Hayes. We got a lot of exciting stuff to cover in this episode. I'm super stoked. So why don't you grab your favorite campfire beverage and let's hit the road. All right, episode 12. Wow. Super stoked to be here. This is awesome. Really happy with how the podcast has been turning out, and I've been getting some good feedback. And it's constantly evolving, constantly trying to make it better, whether that's guests or topics. And the more I think about it, the more I just think like the sky's the limit with this thing. And I'm so happy you're joining me and helping to make this a success. It's really great to see people tuning in, to get some feedback, to get some comments. Just, I hope it's enjoyable for you. I hope you're listening to it on your way to work, or you can enjoy it on your way to a camping trip, or around the house, whatever it may be. And I'm hoping just to put out some good information that will help you make informed decisions, whether you want to buy or sell your camper, you want to learn more about other manufacturers, or some tips and tricks. We got some really good stuff cooking for this podcast for the future, for now, and I just hope you're enjoying it. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for being a part of it, and thanks for keeping it going, for joining me. And this episode, I'm super stoked. We have an amazing guest on the show here shortly. Someone that I've been following for a while, I'm sure you have too, and his build just kind of blew my mind, and I'm excited and curious just to see, how it all started, where he's going, his steps, making this rig, and like I said, future endeavors. So we'll have Micah from Overland Under Budget here on the show here in a second, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I hope you are too. But until then, a couple housekeeping things. Just wanted to say, if you're not already subscribed to the newsletter. It's a great little newsletter that I send out once a week, and it's going to have some industry insights, first dibs on new merch at maybe a discounted rate, maybe not. It'll have events that are happening, and just serve as kind of another medium for us to communicate and to get some more information out there to you guys. And I hope it'll be beneficial whether you're looking to buy or sell a camper, or you want some industry insight, you want to know what's going on, and what other companies are doing. So, yeah, it's a work in progress, like everything here, but we're teaming up with some other manufacturers and kind of hopefully serving as like the loudspeaker to echo other companies' plans or announcements or endeavors, and we hope to kind of share that information with you guys in a more kind of personal way than just a broad post on the Instagram or what have you. So if you're not already subscribed to the podcast, it's super easy. All you got to do is go to our website, www.smalltruckcampers.com. I'm sorry, our website, www.smalltruckcampers.loma.tech. Scroll to the bottom, and you'll see a little form where you can submit your email address, and you'll be added to the email list. It's that easy. We had our giveaway winner announced via that, and we're looking to do more giveaways as we got some new merch lined up for the new year and the rest of this year. So be sure to check out that newsletter, and I don't know, I hope it'll be entertaining for you. Maybe it'll kill some time at work, who knows, but so far I've gotten some good feedback from that, and it's also cool to see. So yeah, just thinking with all these things, the community that we've built out has just been super great, and super thankful that you guys are all following along and participating in that. And I got some good ideas for some podcasts coming up. Got some good feedback about previous episodes and how we can kind of improve moving forward. So yeah, one more way to hopefully continue building out the community, continue to inspire others, and continue just to keep this thing going. So it's great. And yeah, we're recording this episode live from the Six Pack Recording Studio and Community Development Center. It's a beautiful afternoon. And I don't have a whole lot of more information to pass about the Instagram or newsletter or anything. I kind of just want to get right into this interview. So I have a lot of questions for Micah from Overland Under Budget, and I hope we get to answer some questions that you may have, and just kind of explore a little bit more about his background, his rig building experience, and the next steps. So without any further ado, Please welcome my guest for episode 12 of the Small Truck Campers podcast, Micah from Overland Under Budget. And then
Okay.
we'll kind of dive into it right now. So right now we got Micah on the line. Micah's calling in from I can never say it, Atascadero, just inland of San Luis Obispo in
Yeah.
the mountains there north. And you might know him better as Overland Under Budget, according to his Instagram handle. So Micah, thanks so much for making the time and welcome to the Small Truck Camper Show.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Stoked to be here and excited to sit down and chat.
Yeah, me too. I'm super pumped for this conversation. A lot of people, I'm sure, have been following you. They're familiar with your famous build, and we're going to dive into that and how it all came to be. Um,
Sure.
but yeah, until then, I think we just want to learn a little bit about yourself. So currently you're in San Luis Obispo, and just kind of want to learn about your upbringing. Did you guys get into camping growing up? Where'd you grow up? And kind of your history about moving around the West Coast that we kind of just skimmed over.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, I'm 35. I grew up and down the West Coast, really. So, was born in LA and ended up kind of splitting our time between Central Coast, California, and a farm in Oregon, and then down into Portland, Oregon, like metro area, and then eventually to Washington, like Vancouver, Washington. And then we just kind of, through my childhood, moved a bunch around in those local areas. So, up and down, the West Coast has been kind of like a part of our part of our like family history, just moving back and forth and back and forth. But the last 13 years I've been, after I got married, right? So I've been married for 13 years. I got married up in Washington, and soon after we got married we moved back down to California, and we actually moved from Washington to Santa Barbara, lived there for a few years, then Carpinteria, then Santa Monica, then Calabasas, and then Los Osos, California. Now we're in Atascadero. So yeah, just kind of like moved a bunch growing up, and then moved a bunch after as an adult myself with my own family. And yeah, that's kind of my history as far as like moving and upbringing. We big family, 5 kids, really close knit. We were all homeschooled, partly because we were moving all the time, partly just because my parents were really wanted to prioritize like spending time with us. And a part of that childhood was building Legos like all the time. I don't know how it came about, but I think someone had given my dad some Legos, and we found them when we were like probably 5 or 6, and then it just became like an addiction. And that was like our main toy as a kid was Legos. We had tons of Legos, lots of like Lego Technic, so gears and wheels and axles and stuff. And so that was like our main toy, like our whole childhood. I still play with them all the time. And when I have time, and my kids are huge Lego fans, and we have like huge buckets of Legos, like huge buckets of Legos. So that's kind of where like the building originated, I think, was just physically building like Lego cars. So we were literally building like little 4-wheel drive cars or tractors. At one point we lived on a farm. So there was a lot of like farm vehicles and just all types of vehicles. And that's kind of where like the automotive mechanical part of the building came in, I think, is just being around vehicles all the time and naturally kind of having a interest in those things. And my dad was also like kind of mechanically inclined and also into vehicles. So he grew up around motorcycles and cars. And so all those things together kind of formed like the desire to like want to do projects and build stuff and kind of be in the automotive space. Like when I was a kid, my dream job was to be like an automotive engineer, is what I thought. Like, oh, I want to do that. Like design and engineering and like building. I didn't realize that's not really a job at a car manufacturer with all those things, but it's kind of crazy how it's worked out to be kind of like that now.
Well, that's awesome. I have this theory that, because I played with Legos a ton too growing up, and I have a theory that the people that like small truck campers, the reason we do is because it fits together so well in the bed of a truck, like especially
Yeah.
if it fits flush and it just fits perfectly. I feel like there's such a connection there to maybe all of us growing up building out Legos and just the way we want things to fit together now, and we want things flush and compartmentalized, and
Yeah.
you kind of reinforce that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
That's so
That's
funny.
funny. I feel like too, you had mentioned too off the podcast that you worked for like a company that um, does a lot of branding and does a lot of like aesthetic design and marketing and stuff. And the other part of my upbringing was I was a photographer for before I did any of the social media stuff. And there's actually a few of my siblings are as well. And I think just having that, like, even if it's not a good eye, but having like an eye for art, an eye for photography, just you have like a strong opinion, basically, like aesthetically and visually, you can look at something. I bet that's part of it too, because I feel like I just have super strong design opinions and like, oh, it's got to be like this, got to be like that. Not that they're great, but like that also goes into play, I think, with the DIY building part, the design aspect, like wanting to control that.
Yeah, I agree. And what comes to mind is like Basil Lynch and his endeavors as being a photographer first and foremost, and like
Hmm.
you said, capturing those aesthetics and just wanting it to fit a certain way, and having that is such an advantage, especially in the age of Instagram and stuff, where it's all about visual expression. So I wish I had more of a photo background, but I'm sure that's such an advantage, especially bringing in the videos and all that stuff. So I think that definitely is something that a lot of people can relate to.
It's funny. I was just sleeping in Basil's parking lot, not last night, but the night before.
Oh, down in San Diego.
Yeah,
Nice.
down in Oceanside. Yeah, his
That,
shop is really cool.
yeah, he's
Super
someone I want
cool.
to get on this podcast
Yeah,
in the
yeah, he'd
next
be great.
couple episodes or so. So if you're listening,
Yeah,
Basil, I want to reach out. Um,
yeah.
but that's awesome. That's
Text me.
awesome. You definitely hit a lot of the cool parts of California. I mean, a lot of parts I'm familiar with as well, being from Ventura County, like Santa Monica, Calabasas, Los Osos, um, going up and down to Portland, Oregon, and Astoria, as we talked about earlier. So, what was your dad doing, or what was your family doing for work that allowed you guys to travel up and down and hit all those cool areas?
Yeah, so my dad did two things. Like since he was, I think 13, he was working in machine shops. So for part of my childhood, he was like running machine shops. So they were making like parts for like dentist applications, all the way to like space shuttle pieces, like just any type of that type of machining. So he ran machines and then eventually ran like the floors on machine shops. So he did that, and then later he did ministry and like kind of life coaching and stuff like that. So he moved around doing that as well, like different opportunities up and down the coast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible, and what a good geographic location to be involved with that, and be able to take you guys to those amazing areas.
Yeah, they're definitely, I mean, I'm biased. I've traveled most of the states of the US doing my former photography job and always coming back to like Central Coast. I mean, pretty much anywhere between Santa Barbara and Monterey is really special.
Yeah,
It's just like it's just a crazy zone, but San Luis Obispo in particular is just incredible. Especially right now, like you fly in and it's still a small town, but it's so nice and it's just incredible natural beauty and yeah, super lucky right here.
yeah, beautiful area, and I can't agree more about that area just south of Monterey, Big Sur down to
Yeah,
Morro Bay, Cayucas down to Ventura is just like my
yeah,
favorite stretch of drive. And living in Santa Cruz and my family's still down in LA doing that drive every couple of months, it's so epic. It's just so inspiring.
yeah. It's super nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and we got the
man. But
perfect
I'm
backyard.
not into LA proper though. Like
Nah,
that's why I was like at Santa Monica's like the farthest south I can go, and then I'm like, get me
yeah,
home. It's just always going
totally.
north.
Yeah, once you dive south of like Thousand Oaks area, it's that's when it gets just
Yeah,
gnarly.
yeah, yeah. We were in like Agora Hills too,
Okay.
which is like right, right, in between Thousand Oaks and Calabasas, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
our address was technically Calabasas, but this tiny little zone, like where Las Virgenes Road connects like over the canyon to like Malibu
Yeah.
Market and everything. Yeah, yeah, it's a super cool little zone.
Yeah. Well, we
California
could
little zones.
definitely got to talk more about. Yeah. I pretty much grew up down there, driving Canaan a ton. I grew up in Newbury
Oh
Park,
yeah,
so yeah, I was right
were you
there.
were you riding bikes too since you were working at Deus?
No, no, I never really got
Yeah,
into full on bikes, but all those roads like Decker Canyon, Los Virgenes,
yeah,
yeah, Canaan, Mulholland, just so good for
yeah.
just driving and cruising around. But obviously, way better on a bike. So that's funny.
More dangerous, but a lot of fun. And we lived right by there. That's when I had the Ducati and had the
Oh, cool.
I had to get rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was it wasn't going
We
to be good living right
yeah.
by Mulholland.
We could talk for hours about that. That's pretty awesome, and I'm sure we will. Maybe not in this episode, but
Yeah.
I wanna pick your
Off
brain
camera.
more. Yeah, off camera. So, you guys end up settling in like Los Osos. We'll call it San Luis Obispo area, just for simplicity's
Yeah.
sake. And at this point, this is kind of before your current build, the Tacoma, which we'll talk about. And before that thing all started, was your main job photography? And if so, like what kind of segment of photography were you doing at the time?
Yeah, so I did two main jobs beforehand. I did sales, retail sales when I was in Santa Barbara. I was a assistant manager at Nordstrom's for the women's shoe department. So
That's
I
so
did women's
cool.
shoe sales. Yeah, well, not super cool, but it was fun. It
Yeah,
was fun working. I love sales and interacting with
yeah.
people and stuff. And then from that, I went into photography, like commercially. Before, I was just doing photography on the side, like for the last few years, like doing portraits and little freelance jobs and stuff. But I landed a job doing hotel photography. So as a contractor, I worked with this company that did would get massive contracts to shoot whole hotel brands like all over the U.S. So they might be reshooting because they had a remodel, or they might be reshooting shooting marketing because it's a new hotel. So anything from like the crappiest hotels, like Days Inn or like in downtown LA or something, like a place you'd never want to go, to like really nice hotels like Intercontinental on the beach, like in Miami, Florida, or wherever. So that's what I did um, before I started this, was travel to those places. So like I'd just get an email with like a certain number of hotels and then flights, and then just fly out and go, like literally stay at the hotels and shoot the interiors and exteriors and then go to the next one. And that was kind of like my job before any of this all started.
Dang, that's pretty interesting. Was that for like Yelp photos or like for like their website or like
Yep,
just to
for
have?
their website, for their brand.
Okay.
So like,
Yeah.
if you go on any, they have like standardized branding photos. That's what those were for. So
Okay.
like it depends on how the owners used them and stuff, but each hotel has to have its kind of like brand standards to meet like the brand standards. So it'd be like photos of the lobby, photos of the exterior, photos of like each type of guest room, like booking
Yeah.
photos, and then sometimes it was marketing, like photos that were used outside of that, but a lot of it was just like the booking photos and stuff.
Nuts. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, is it weird? Is it like a very unique? That's one thing about
Yeah.
photography.
Very
There's
niche.
so many. Yeah, you could get into so many different things. So my brother did it too, and he ended up working for some huge brands and like spent like a month in China shooting hotels. And yeah, it's very interesting. Like very, just it was like a unique job. It was cool at the time, but it was too much travel as we
Yeah.
started having kids and stuff. So it was gone too much.
When I briefly lived in Australia for like 2 years, and I worked for a
Hmm.
PR company, and
Okay.
they would do something similar, but they would fly out like journalists to these hotels to like write about them,
Uh-huh. Oh,
kind of
cool.
similar with photography. And I was like, that's like so cool. You get to go to like Africa, like Madagascar or something,
Yeah.
and write these, or Mauritius. Those are the ones that the company I was working for were like doing, and yeah, definitely some cool opportunities out there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
That sounds a little more luxurious than what I was doing,
Yeah, yeah, definitely not as grindy.
maybe we'll
Um,
transition to that. Yeah, not as
so
grindy.
so let's talk about. So that's kind of what you're doing. You're flying around these hotels, taking photos. You got your kind of gig going. It's going well. You're starting to build out your family, which is amazing. Um, and at this point, what was your kind of experience with camping or rigs, like up to this point, when maybe you're thinking about doing the Tacoma build?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been into everything automotive, everything mechanical, and I had yet to have like a pickup truck, a four-wheel drive pickup truck of my own. I never had, actually, I don't think I ever had a pickup either. Um, been around like a lot of sports cars and just never had a four-wheel drive just based on where we lived. As a kid, we had like a four-wheel drive Suburban, we had a Isuzu Trooper, and we lived on a farm that was tractors, and so I was like always into that, monster trucks and everything, but I just never, like when I was old enough to get a car, we were just in urban areas for the most part, and like I didn't have a truck. Um, so I actually had a Porsche Cayenne, and turbo, and then a lowered BMW 335D, and I had that Ducati and stuff. So I was very street street
Yeah,
cars, um,
very.
different, yeah, Calabasas style, and
Absolutely.
uh,
Yeah.
and so when we moved to Los Osos, I was like, okay, well, Los Osos, for anyone who doesn't know, it's on Central Coast, and it's this tiny little, still a tiny little coastal town, and there's a lot of dirt roads, and then all the parking lots for the beaches are dirt and all that kind of stuff. So it just doesn't make sense to have a lowered Beamer as like a car. And so it was perfect timing to get like a truck and do something like
Yeah.
that. So I was like, okay, well, sell the Beamer and start looking for a pickup truck. I've always wanted to have a pickup truck or have like a project truck, um, and it was just like good timing. So I sold the Beamer and started looking for trucks that had four doors, that were four wheel drive, that weren't like gigantic. I didn't want to have like a long bed F
Yeah.
250 at the time. I was like wanting
Yeah.
something that I could take off road and also wouldn't just be hard to be like daily driver because it had to be a daily driver too. So yeah,
Yes.
found that one on Craigslist. Didn't really actually know much about them specifically. Like I was obviously aware of them and they were one of my favorite looking trucks, but didn't really know, wasn't really into like Toyotas,
Mhm.
like some people are. So yeah, just ended up skateboarding over there and buying that, um,
Nice.
and then it started. Yeah,
I can only imagine the
cool.
neighbors when the guys from LA move in with a Porsche Cayenne, a
Yeah,
lowered Beamer, and a Ducati Sportster or Ducati
yeah,
Monster.
yeah.
They're like, "Oh my God,
We fit
dude."
the LA Calabasas vibe at the time we moved in there for sure.
Yeah.
Everything was all black, everything.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
but
That's awesome. You guys adapted to the environment you were in, and you were able
yeah,
to secure that truck, which is pretty sweet.
yeah,
And you wanted the four door because you had the family that was growing, right? You wanted to
hmm
have a little
yeah.
way
Well,
to
we already
haul
had
them around.
one. Yeah, we already had one kid, so we have three now total. But and just being in part of a big family, like it's just not. I didn't want to have a vehicle that just didn't work. Like
Hmm.
sometimes, like I didn't want to be out and about and be like, "Oh, can you pick someone up or can you do this?" And be like, "No, I'm in the truck, I can't."
Yeah,
So like
yeah,
it
I hear
had to
that.
be like utility version and be just as useful just around town as it would be for trips because it was the main focus of it was just to get another vehicle that I could use to get off grid and go do stuff. But the main focus was I need another vehicle. It just makes more
Yeah,
sense for us.
no, totally,
Yeah.
totally. So at this point, were you guys like into camping as at all, or like kind of, what was your outlook on like rigs or camping at the time?
Yeah, so I actually didn't do a ton of camping as a kid, but we went on some camp trips and they were like really impactful. Like we all remember going to Yellowstone and that was one of our camp trips we did. Um, and then besides like particular like going camping, we did it as a family. We loved it. We didn't do it. We weren't like one of those families that was like out every weekend camping or anything. But growing up, living on a farm, homeschooling, like doing nature walks, we were super just outdoors, like focused. Not like my parents weren't doing backpacking trips like some kids' parents do, but we were just playing outdoors. Like we
Hmm.
skateboarded, we rode dirt bikes, we played in the creek, we drove the tractor, we uh, mountain bike, anything outdoors, like we were doing. That's what we were doing. I did like track and field a little bit. I did tennis. I did
Nice.
basketball. I did mountain biking, skateboarding, like all those things. So we were just outdoors all the time, and um, the outdoors has always been like a big focus for me. So that more of just like the ability to get outdoors was more like why I wanted the truck in the beginning. It wasn't like I'm gonna go do all these camp trips. It was just like the vehicle side with the outdoor side. I was like, this makes sense. I can have my mountain bike, I got my dirt bike, I could go explore cool places.
Yeah, totally.
So
No, that definitely makes sense. So,
I don't know if that answers. You had a pretty direct
uh,
question and a really
yeah,
indirect
just
answer.
just kind of your outlook on it all. Yeah, yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. Um, that's wonderful. So, I guess what I'm trying to make the transition from like I have the Tacoma, I have the truck, I'm living up here in San Luis
hmm
Obispo area. I'm trying to connect that dot with like the rig you built. So like, what was maybe your inspiration? What was kind of the motivation, and how did you start? Because obviously that rig's got a ton of attention. So it looks like you know what you were doing. It looks like you grew up around rigs, and just kind of want to. I'm
No.
trying to bridge
Yeah,
that
you're
gap in
like,
my
what? This
mind.
something doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm like, what? Yeah.
Yeah, so I know I feel like hopefully I know I'm kind of like these really long wandering answers, and
It's all
it's
good.
hard for me to explain because I feel like it all plays into like where I am now because I did sales. I
Hmm.
talk to a ton of people. I talk to a ton of people nowadays, like and interact with people online and offline. I did the travel portion of photography. Like with that job, I had to learn like how to do logistics and be comfortable going new places, and also loved getting out to new places.
Hmm.
And that's part of it. And then the photography part was a huge motivation for the truck as well, just because was doing hotel photography, but my passion was like if someone came up to me and was like, "What would you want to do for your dream job?" It'd be like outdoor brand shoots, like maybe shooting for Patagonia, like on location somewhere cool, or like shooting, something like Benchmade knives, like being
Sure.
used, like on a hunt or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what like I wanted to do, but I had zero of that in my portfolio. So I was like, oh well, I could use my truck as an excuse to like get out and start building like a portfolio around that. So in the very beginning when I started my Instagram, I started the truck as well and just used it to get out to cool places to kind of start shooting like lifestyle outdoor photos. So that was like kind of one motivation for moving that way. And then as far as like the aesthetics of the trucks or thinking like I knew what I was doing with the truck, it really didn't. I just grew up, around industrial work trucks were a big inspiration. Like growing up in Oregon, there's a lot of logging trucks and work trucks, and I've always loved like that aesthetic of kind of like builds that are purpose built. Like there's nothing on there because it's like flashy and cool. Like they're not going to pay for it.
Hmm.
The
Totally.
trucks are just like bare minimum. What works, what has to be on there. The way the lights. There's one light. It's not has doesn't have to be two lights that are like aesthetic across or whatever. It's just it's got this interesting aesthetic of like just pure functionality, and that ends up being like a really beautiful simple aesthetic, I think, if you can get it right. And so those are big inspirations for me. So like, and also like UN vehicles. I don't know why, but like UN vehicles are the same thing. They're like they're cool looking because they're like kind of military, but they're basic and they're
Hmm.
clean and they're like, but they also have to be capable off road or for
Yeah.
however they use them. So
Utilitarian.
exactly. So those things were like in my mind when I got my truck. It wasn't the first time I'd like changed little aesthetic things on a vehicle, and I was like, oh, with the Porsche I got for super cheap, I like used black vinyl to black out all the chrome. I got wheels off a new Cayenne that were on Craigslist, and I had them powder coated black. And then I like did just a couple aesthetic changes, and it made a huge change of it visually. And I was like, oh, I did that with my motorcycle too, like
Hmm.
all black, just pieced together, changing the aesthetics. I took the passenger rear set pegs off and put single sets on from a different bike, and like just things I would just be like, I want it to look this way, and kind of figure out how it could work. So when I got the truck, I already had like a simple aesthetic in mind. Like I know I want to have black wheels, like simple steel wheels, like a government vehicle or a forest vehicle or a UN vehicle. I wanted to have off-road tires that weren't like big mud trains, but were like kind of like on a UN vehicle, like a aggressive all-terrain, kind of narrow, kind of tall, and then black out any chrome and just kind of debadge and like I don't want flashy. I just want that like simple utilitarian look. So that was immediately what I did. Like I bought the truck. I started looking for a rear bumper. I found one on Craigslist. It was just a tube, and then I found Steelies, and I got all-terrain tires and a snorkel, which at the time in my mind was more like this is like a UN vehicle, like just like
Totally.
tractor mode type of vehicle, and so that's like where the aesthetic started. Um, and that's just always been my personal aesthetic. And so it just started like that, and then it just continued to keep going and build off on and on
Yeah.
and on.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. When I worked at Deus, like just seeing what you could do by deleting like an airbox on like a cafe racer,
Yeah.
And replacing the blinker lights with like thinner ones from like
Yep.
Japan,
Mm-hmm.
and making that headlight big. Clean
Yep.
saddlebags, white wall, wide tire, and yeah, like I see now that you had the eye from all these, you had the Slam Beamer,
Mm-hmm.
but that was an aesthetic. You had the Porsche, which I haven't seen, but it's all that aesthetic, and just doing those few things, you
Mm-hmm.
were able to piece together these experiences through your life and be like, all right, I just need to do X, Y, and Z to kind of get it to where I want it to be started at, and then I can keep going from there. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm starting to connect the dots a little bit. So this is cool. This is super
Yeah,
cool.
and even in the like to go even more in the woods, but even in like the photo world that I was in, like with the hotel photography and stuff, a lot of it is, you take an interior shot of like a bedroom or a big area and you do like multiple exposures and you're putting it all together. But a huge part of it is actually like removing like a bunch of elements that are in there, like
Huh.
sprinklers in the ceiling and straightening any wrinkles and removing postage or signage and all that kind of stuff, and doing that for years and seeing like how big of a change like removing stuff can make it, like also stuck in my head, like, and of like how you can clean something up. It makes a huge visual impact, even though to the untrained eye you'd just see one and you'd see the other and you'd be like, dang, that one looks awesome, that one looks like, I don't know why, but I don't like it. It's like the actual removing stuff and paring stuff down like does a huge visual impact change. And like I think that coupled with building Legos as a kid, where Legos are just a bunch of shapes, right? And like that's at the basics, that's what they're shapes. And you have to have like an image in your mind that's a shape, but also like a mechanics of how it moves. And you're just brushing through piles of these plastic shapes, looking for shapes that go together to make the aesthetic that you're looking for. And so I think I had like a very strong sense of that already, where I could like look at a truck or look at a project and be like, okay, this is what I need, and not have to look at things that were pre-built or pre-established for like, oh, I could get this and this looks like that. It's like, no, I just need to look for the shapes. So like
Yeah.
I could see that like at the hardware store, I could see it on junk on the side of the road or make it myself, and also see it like how it was affecting the truck. And so I don't know. That's a long answer, but I feel like all
No.
those things came together to be like where I was and how it started and like why from day one it like started looking the way it does now, with like no experience fabricating or no background like having trucks or anything like that.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's so cool to hear. And all right, so now we're at the truck. It's pretty dialed. We got the snorkel. We got the rear
Mhm.
bumper. We got the steelies. Like we're happy with the truck. We're living in San Luis Obispo.
Yeah.
At what point do you say, you know what, I'm gonna take the bed off and I'm just gonna weld my own tray or my own camper? Keeping in mind that you have a wife and kids and a house and
uh,
like all these other distractions and stuff going on in your life. At what point are you like? Because I feel like so many people are at that point where they have the truck, they have all, they have maybe the money, maybe not the money, whatever.
mhm.
But it's a big leap to be like, I'm ripping off the truck bed. I'm just gonna go this completely different direction. Walk me through that process and kind of the first steps in building out the rig.
Yeah, so try and make this like more concise than all my other
Okay,
answers,
yeah.
but um, the main motivation was I had that truck, like you mentioned, set up. I started doing projects on it. I started sharing it, and it was like what it was. I was using it at that point to go out locally and then also on trips. And it worked fine. I could sleep in the back with the camper shell, but it's a 5 foot bed, so I had to sleep diagonal. So
Yeah.
it could just barely fit in there, It's like bare minimum. And I started bringing my son, Christian, who at the time was like 2 years old, and he fit back there with me, but it was like very tight. We did some trips, and then eventually we did one trip as he was getting bigger where I was super claustrophobic, and I was just like, this doesn't work anymore. Like, I can't take him on trips and stay in the truck together. I mean, obviously, we could have a tent or something, but just everything else in life, being super busy, and I'm just not like a big planner, and the trips like I want to do are usually like, oh, do you want to go like somewhere cool like tomorrow or this weekend? And like, it's like the wrong weather. We don't have a campsite. I just want to be able to go, show up somewhere at any time and have like somewhere to sleep. And the back of the truck was kind of like that. Like I didn't care where I was. Like I knew I was going to be dry and like safe inside there. But eventually we did a trip where it was just, I was like, this doesn't work anymore. So I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like I love this truck. It's super fun, and like I definitely didn't have any money at the time, and didn't want to get rid of it. And um, already Instagram was starting to roll a little bit. I think I had like a couple thousand followers or something like that. And I started looking at like other options, like for I think it was around that time that I actually saw 4-wheel drive 24/7, which is an
Hmm.
Australian off-road YouTube show, and they had a lot of like canopy kind of trucks.
Yeah.
And then I also came across like mall tech trucks, which are like basically they look. I mean, to say my truck looks like one of theirs is kind of an insult to their trucks because they're incredible. But they're like chopped trucks with, you know, built-in like carbon fiber structure, very similar. And just the idea of like being able to make more space and keep the same platform was like my motivation in the beginning. Like, could I, if I did a project like this, like, would it be useful in the end? Like, would it be what I want it to be? And for me, I was just like, well, it just sounds like too good of a project to not try it. Like, I really
Nice.
want to just try it. I just want to keep going, you know? Like, I
Hmm.
love the truck. I love how it works. I don't want to get rid of it. And, like, I think I could do this. So I really want to try it. So I just kind of went for it.
Amazing.
So the
I
answer
mean,
is I don't know. I just went for
just went for it.
it.
I'm loving it.
It's like that background, like I mentioned, I built Legos. I also built our bed frame. I built our kitchen table. I built our coffee table, built our cabinet organizers. Like goes into that kind of like
Yeah.
having an aesthetic, having like a DIY like attitude, like liking building stuff, loving projects. I just like if there is something that we needed to buy that we couldn't afford, like a new table or like a, I'd be like, well, I can just make one. And
Yeah.
that was just, I just, and not that it's like, oh, only to save money. It's just like I enjoy making stuff. I enjoy the design of it. So moving from those type of projects and having like a car, I was just working on the car, and that's where like my project outlet, building outlet, moved to.
And were you able to still work as a photographer for the hotels to kind of fund this project, or at that point did you stop working as a photographer?
I stopped working like for I did jobs here and there, but
Okay.
um, my focus shifted to being watching our kids, Christian more, and then eventually our daughter. And my wife started doing real estate. We had like a year and a half transition where neither of us worked like anything super steady, and that was part
Okay.
of it too. Is like I really need to like figure out something, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, if I'm gonna do photography, it's gonna be something that I'm more in a vein like I have a passion for, um, and that made more sense for us. I couldn't be gone all the time, so
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
like when I mentioned like wanting to build out a portfolio of like images that were relevant to jobs I wanted to get.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So we won't go into your build a whole lot because it's very well documented on your Instagram page, and
Cool.
I'm more curious about kind of just the first steps of that build. And obviously, if people are listening, they want more information on the build. The
Mhm.
Instagram has a great resources that document it, so we don't need to go over step by step how it all came to be. Um, but what was that first trip like to the hardware store? You know, getting aluminum, getting a welder. You were just
Yeah.
saying like, I'm just gonna go for it.
Yeah. So let's see. I got the welder. I won the welder on an Instagram giveaway. Yeah. I won the welder on. I really wanted a
It was
welder.
meant
Like
to
after I
be.
got the truck. Yeah.
Yeah.
After I got the truck, you know, like moving from working with wood, like in the house, it's like, well, if you want to work on a truck or something automotive, it's like you kind of need to work with metal.
Totally.
And so I was like, I would love to be able to weld, but the whole setup for welding is a little, it's a little expensive on startup, especially if you're on like a budget like we were. So we were just waiting and waiting, and eventually I was like, I'm just gonna do it and like just take the hit, you know. And
Yeah.
but I entered a giveaway and I won a welder from Forney, which was amazing. So got the welder. First project I did with that was the rock sliders and then the bumper, and this was before I started the flatbed. Like it was, I think I got that like 9 months before I started the flatbed. But so I already had the welder. The first thing I did for the flatbed was pull the truck bed off and just be
I
like,
can't believe you won the welder.
yeah, you didn't know
It went
that?
to the right person.
Yeah,
No, that's hilarious.
yeah, it was the start of a lot of things because
Oh yeah,
it let me just start making stuff. So,
that's incredible.
but yeah, I
So,
guess the part we kind of breezed over was I got the welder like 1 year after I got the truck, and I had done everything I could without a welder. And then I got a welder, and I had that for about 9 months. And during that 9 months, I built rock sliders, I built three rear bumpers, and I built like five roof racks that ended up selling like four of them. So I had started working with metal at that point.
okay.
Um,
And did you have a good
so
spot to do this on your property?
no, not really. I had
No.
a
Okay.
carport. Yeah,
Okay.
I had a carport, so it had no enclosed space. It was just a roof,
Yeah.
and I eventually enclosed it on three sides and made like a
It,
my own like barn door, sliding door for stuff. And
so,
that became like where I built the weapon.
was this like an apartment complex or like a house?
Just a funky house, like a
Okay.
funky house that used to be like a design project for a Cal Poly architecture thing. So it's just like a weird, you know how California houses have like just weird additions. This was like
Yeah.
a garage that they ended up building a unit above
Okay.
that, or like a carport that they built a unit above and they never enclosed it. And it's just funky, non-standard
Yeah.
house.
I
I
was.
plugged my welder into the washing machine, the dryer outlet.
Okay. I,
Yeah.
I was envisioning you like doing this like in an apartment complex, and I was gonna be like, oh my gosh, this is getting like out
No,
of hand. Um,
no.
but that's absolutely incredible. So, at what point did kind of the Instagram start taking over, and you kind of maybe realize like, all right, there actually might be something here than just like taking photos and getting comments? 'Cause I
Um,
checked the other day, you had 196,000, which is like absolutely astounding.
it's just a number
It's pretty
online,
good.
which is so funny, right? It's like anyone's
Yeah.
like if you had the ability to just change it, you'd be like, "What's going on with that person there?" You
Yeah.
know, it's just a number on the page, but yeah, I
Well,
guess
that
it
means,
represents like anything.
almost 200,000 people are interested in what you're doing. So obviously, through the photography, through the rig, through the timing, through the medium of Instagram, like you've collected a lot
Hmm.
of people that are interested in what you're doing, which I would say is way above the average for our industry. Um,
Mm.
so kind of at what point did it start pivoting from like, oh, I'm just gonna go like tinker and kind of be like, okay, I'm actually getting like a lot of people following, people are interested in this. Maybe I should like start investing in camera equipment or kind of start
Uh,
making this a thing.
I guess um, I don't know if there was really there's like 2 points maybe like one point where like I guess in the beginning, I had it's just all those things come together, I guess, because I was already a photographer, so I was already taking images that were being used like commercially, and so I had all that equipment. So very early on, actually, some of my like projects were in some magazine, like art,
Hmm.
and I wrote up some magazine articles, some like DIY projects, and I got spotted for some of that stuff like in the beginning, kind of early. And I also started a YouTube channel at the same time um, that started growing, and I think it's just like the feeling of like people started following from the beginning. It wasn't like explosive, but it just had traction. Like even though I had
Hmm.
only a couple thousand followers, I had a magazine article come out, and then I got a magazine cover with my own photo that I took. And then it just kind of, I don't know like how it just kind of started building like that.
Yeah.
And I guess because in the beginning, and I've always done like I've always worked for myself, or I've not always, but I've done a lot of like entrepreneurial stuff. I just had that optimistic sense of like I'm I don't know what I'm doing. Like I don't know how this if this will pan out to be like like a living, like how I'm gonna make a living doing this.
Hmm.
Changed like multiple times. Like, oh, I think it's gonna work. Like where I'm gonna start shooting for like outdoor brands, or
Yeah.
like oh maybe I'll be making money on YouTube, or maybe like maybe I'll end up working sales for a company that sells off-road parts or something. Like there were different times where it just I didn't know what I was chasing. I just knew that like what I was doing was kind of working, and I really enjoyed it, and it was exactly like the things I wanted to do, and people were getting behind it, and I just didn't know how that was going to pan
How's
out
yeah.
until yeah, but it just kept like things kept progressing like especially after I started the
Yeah.
flatbed thing kind of got really popular, and then that grew my page a lot. And then Instagram Reels rolled out, and was an early adopter of those, and like had a few viral ones of those, and that took my page from like 20,000 to like 50,000 like pretty quickly. And took the truck at that time. I was also building the truck and like finished the canopy, and like the truck was in the Dometic booth.
Nice.
And at that point, I was kind of like, I actually met with some other bigger YouTubers out there, like Mike Pfeiffer from Last Line of Defense. I don't know if you know his channel, but he's got about a 500,000 subscribers on YouTube
Okay.
in the overlanding outdoor space. And I actually shared an Airbnb with him and like had this conversation. Like I like have a bunch of Instagram followers now. Is there a way like for this to work? Like, can I make a living doing this? And I was kind of like at the point where I hadn't made any money, but I had made like cool connections, and like
Hmm.
there'd be a magazine article or like a magazine cover. I'm like, do I keep doing this, or like do I need to just get a regular job? Because we also really needed money and stuff. But I just kind of kept going, and like it just eventually just I just kept pursuing it, and keep going after the things I wanted to do, which was just the projects and the getting outside and the taking photos because I love it. And um, yeah, it was just like this last year and a half that it turned into like kind of full time,
Wow.
just snowball.
That's that's awesome. Yeah, it's a lot of just there's a lot of dots that you can't really connect, but
Yeah.
the dots are there, and you're like, how am I gonna like connect all these dots together? Because I have like the Instagram here with like a couple thousand followers. I got the YouTube over here. I had a few magazine articles. I'm like doing these events, but like I
Hmm.
need to like wrangle up all these dots and just like connect them all, and
Yeah.
that's when I'll make it happen. And I totally can see, you got the momentum. You had all the signs that said keep going, but you didn't have the most obvious sign, which was like a paycheck coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. And then eventually I did get that paycheck coming in, and it's like, okay, like then like looking back, you're just kind of like, that's why I feel like I have to be honest, like telling you, like I really don't. I don't feel like I wish I could be like, yeah, I did this, this, and this, and now I'm here, and now this is how like what I do for a living. It was really just like, uh, I feel like God, in working in my life, just kind of pushing me towards like the things I wanted to do, um, and providing like a way for me to make a living, basically doing my absolute dream job, which didn't really exist when I started, which is now
Yeah,
going out with my family, doing projects, doing whatever things, like pursuing the things I love doing, like
amazing.
fitness,
Yeah,
outdoors, building cars. Like it's just like it's
the
the
best.
dream. Yeah, but I wish
Yeah,
I had like a more clear path for you. Just
no,
once I
that makes
got, yeah,
makes
just kind of
perfect sense.
snowballed.
So, uh, before we get into kind of what's on the horizon, just a snapshot
Yeah.
of today. How are you like making a living? Is it through YouTube? Is it through clothing? Is it through photo shoots? Like, or is it through commissioning for projects? How did you
Mhm.
kind of string this together into a living today?
Yeah, so right now it's brand ambassadorships. It's probably about 50% brand ambassadorships, and then 50% paid like content creation. And then there's just other random things along that with like uh, having the truck at different events, or being paid to like bring it somewhere or display it, that kind of stuff. That's like a small part of it too. But and then there's YouTube as well. So like traditional, YouTube ad integrations, and um, it's like a mixture of all those things. But yeah, brand ambassador contracts, paid like content creation, like project based, maybe it's one Instagram reel for a company, or maybe it's like six or seven, or this last year I've done um, quite a few video projects for Amazon.
Oh wow,
Um, yeah, yeah, so that's been like a
very
client
cool.
that like aligns with me really well. I know some people hate Amazon, but I have got so many parts from Amazon for my
Yeah,
camper build and stuff, so it's perfect. And like for me, it's like the way I work with them is like I'll do like a Instagram reel on like a specific project that I've already done and used a product, and then drive and be like, go check out the product in my Amazon store. So it's really just like normal content that I would create, only instead of people DMing me and be like, send me the link, I'm just like, check the link in my bio.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so I don't
totally.
have to send it to you. So like,
Wow,
that's one way to do it. And yeah,
incredible.
that's kind of my split right now.
Yeah. I dig it. I mean, that's absolutely awesome. So, real quick, what does the future have in store? What does the future look like for you, uh, in terms of projects or ambitions, or just kind of curious? What do you got on the horizon?
Yeah, I think, more of the same. It's more, even though like, some people might think like, oh, he's arrived, like he's made it, like he's making money, he's doing what he wants. Like there's still that sense of like, I don't know where it'll go in the future, like as far as what direction it'll take. And I'm confident it'll keep going, but I'm open to like where it goes. And um, as far as like projects and stuff, I actually just bought a truck today, at an insurance auction.
No way.
Yeah, so
If you would have
I
said
just got a new
Copart, I would
project.
have been like, ding, ding, ding.
It's
Uh,
Copart. Yeah, I bought it on Copart.
oh my god,
Yeah, yeah.
epic! What'd you get?
I got a 2021. I haven't released this on Instagram because I just
Okay,
got it, but that's fine. I'm gonna announce it anyways. But it's a 2021 Ford Ranger, Lariat with trimmer package,
whoa,
and it has rear end damage. So I'm do a flatbed build on it, and I think I got the winning bid was 11,700. So yeah,
4 door
four door. Yeah,
runs and
yeah.
drives fine.
Runs and drives. As apparently, we'll see when I pick it up. It's in Bakersfield.
Wow, I bought a Copart membership once just to get in on the action,
Really?
but yeah,
Oh yeah.
totally. It's like
What did you get?
it's like the king of kings for Craigslist and Facebook. It's like the
Oh
final
yeah.
boss is Copart.
Final boss
Uh,
mode. Yeah, you
yeah.
have to be willing to take some risks. But my dad just got a Ranger a month ago, a 2019 with 19,000 miles for $13,000, and
Wow.
it's like rear end damage. So I fixed the frame in the back, and yeah, it looks amazing.
Bob's your uncle. Damn.
Bob's your
That's
uncle.
yeah.
Exactly.
That's some Australian slang,
Yeah.
meaning all is
Yeah.
good.
No, I love that one. We use that when we were kids. But yeah, so that's
Yeah.
one of my future projects is building that. And I've been talking about doing another build, for a long time. So I'm super excited to have that one and do another build where basically like I've had my truck and I've just continued to polish it out, like my thoughts and ideas and stuff. But I'm now at like rendition number three of a lot of the things. And I'm really excited to have like that as like a working model and be able to start fresh on the new one from day one, knowing all the little details that are going to go into it. Because that was one of the hardest parts of building that truck was having all these thoughts like I want to have a heater, I want it to have lights, I want it to have like USB ports, I want to like be able to go off road and have high clearance and like also be able to use it without the camper on as a flatbed and like it's got to be good around town and I want to have storage. It's like so many things and what you're faced with is pulling the truck bed off and looking at empty space and being like have all those thoughts in your mind and being like, dang, where do I place the first where do I place
Yeah.
the first piece of metal that's not going to ruin all those ideas, So having
Wow.
that already together is going to be amazing and I'm like super excited to start afresh with like all those ideas and like a working model, a physical model of being able to like reference. So that's like
Wow.
a big project. And then I've got trips and stuff for next year and um, just more cool like brand collaborations and yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah. Super exciting. Any plans? Are you gonna keep the Tacoma, or what's in store
Oh
for
yeah.
that?
Oh, 100%.
Not for sale.
I'll
Yeah.
burn it before I sell it.
Yeah.
I can't give it away. Yeah, no,
I
it's
love
too
it.
personal. It's too personal and it's like too optimized. I just supercharged it and just put new
Oof.
exhaust on
Nice.
it. I think eventually, like once I get this other truck going, I'm gonna just continue to just build that thing out to be like the ultimate version it can be, kind of like let it have its uh, day in the sun, like it's
Yeah.
give it everything it deserves. Like I think I'm gonna get a standalone ECU and fully tune the engine and like just
Wow.
make it kind of as badass as possible.
Damn. Well, it's awesome, and I'm excited to watch you progress through all your
Thanks, dude.
endeavors, and I'm extremely confident that our whole audience is also cheering for you, and can't wait to see what you got coming out next. So
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I'm
that's
super excited.
awesome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, that kind of wraps up our conversation, and that was super awesome just to hear all of your story, where you came from, where you're headed, and the success you've had. It's been super great. So I want to thank you for making time to meet me on the show, and we're
Yeah,
looking forward to following along for the next year and whatever else is to come.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm sorry if I rambled on and had some pretty unclear answers, but that's
That is
just how it's
perfect.
gone for me,
Yeah,
and I gotta just share like all the details because I feel like it's all part of the soup as to how it
yeah,
came about. So yeah, thanks
I
for giving
love
me the
it.
opportunity.
Yeah, and maybe we'll do a round two here next year after the Rangers complete.
Yeah, we should check in sometime when maybe halfway through I might have some thoughts that I don't have once it's finished. It'd be interesting to to look back
Yeah,
on.
would love
So,
that. All right, Micah, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be staying tuned to whatever you got coming up next.
awesome. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, thanks, brother.
Bye.
All right, guys, that was episode 12 with our interview with Micah from Overland Under Budget of the Small Truck Campers podcast. And I'm so stoked you were able to join me with that awesome conversation. I hope you got some good takeaways. I know I did. It was so interesting to hear about all of his story, his experiences, next steps, etc. Please be following along to our Instagram, sign up for the newsletter, and keep staying tuned. We got a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline. So thanks for joining me on this episode, and looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. Until then, take care. Later.